It's Monday, January 12th, 2015. I'm Jimmy Principe.
And I'm Trey Comstock. Put in your final orders because this is Tech's Last Call, episode 102. Your last call for Tech News of the Week. Tonight, Jimmy has the Vibe Band make a teraflop in his hand. And I remind you that in Vegas, it's all about the silicon. And we start tonight with those very important silicon parts. So it is Vegas and it is CES and of course it's time to talk about silicon chips. You know, the chips that power all our devices are made of silicon, and there was actually a lot of very important silicon news. Specifically, Intel finally actually released its Broadwell chip architecture. Now, this had been announced, and we'd kind of known about it, and we've been talking about it for a while, but it had been delayed. And finally, we got it in actual devices.
Yeah, we saw a bunch of devices with it.
So Intel, in somewhat of a fairly logical system, alternates between increasing the power of their chips and increasing the power efficiency of their chips. So this year with Broadwell, it is all about power efficiency. They're moving down to a 14 nanometer process and released a whole slew of different specs of chips from Core I series, Core M series, Pentiums, Celerons, all of these different chips.
Atoms.
No, Atoms is a different thing. Atoms are not Broadwell. Atoms will be... it's
the other one.
Trails.
Bay
Trails are Atoms. Wells are Core series.
Yeah, now that they both start with B, I'm very easily confused.
Right, and so... This is not the Atom processors, but even still, you're getting a whole bunch of incredibly low-power devices. So the one that really stood out to me is the new Dell XPS 13. So they've done three things that kind of Broadwell lets them do. One, they've shrunk the chassis down so that it is a 13-inch laptop in the same case footprint as an 11-inch laptop. But it's a full 13-inch screen. That 13-inch screen basically has no bezel. I think they have some dumb name like an infinity display, but whatever. It just means there's no bezel. But here's
That's right, infinity display.
Yeah, whatever. Here's the show-stopping feature. It is a real laptop. Not like a tablet or like an ARM chip-based thing, with 15 hours of battery life. Now, I understand this isn't, and that's if you get it without a touchscreen. With a touchscreen, you lose a couple hours. Who cares? Couple hours, it used to be a couple hours of battery life in a laptop mattered. When you have 15 hours or 13 hours, that 2 hours becomes a much lower percentage change.
Oh, yeah.
So I think they also had, kind of a wearable system on a chip architecture. Intel also announced their new series of chips, the X1, the Tegra X1, which will, as I said in the intro, will do a teraflop. So you have teraflop performance in terms of graphics crunching. What a flop is not really important, except it's how we measure graphics chip performance. And besides that, don't worry about it. Floating point objects is what it. I mean, I know what a flop is, but explaining it is not really important. Just understand that a teraflop is a lot to have in your hand.
Lots of flops.
It's lots of flops in your hands.
All of the flops.
It's a trillion flops in your hand, and that's just a lot of flops in your hand.
I don't know. It's 1024 times 1024 times 1024. Anyways.
It's a lot of flops. And on top of it being a lot of flops, they're going to put these flops into cars. So they're basically have a...
No. You don't want car flops. Car flops are bad.
Teraflops in cars. So they have a platform that's basically designed to run your autonomous car. That takes two Tegra X1s and lets them crunch data from multiple cameras and all kinds of interesting things like that. But the real story is Broadwell. Broadwell is maybe not going to change the PC market as we know it, but this promise of battery life may finally really be here, where it isn't just like all day if your workday is 8 hours, it is all day on the floor of CES all day.
Well, it's also the you talked about the Dell, which I think is actually going to do the best.
I hope so.
But Lenovo had their flashy Levy that they showed off, that Levy HZ550, which is they claim is the lightest 13-inch laptop ever at 2.04 pounds.
Wow, I mean that is
or no, that's the HZ750. Sorry, the HZ550 is an 11-inch laptop at 1.72 pounds.
Jeez.
Full laptop with the yoga type hinge that folds back, and now
so
they take a hit on the battery life.
It's the same weight as the Surface, but it includes the keyboard.
Right, now they take a major hit on battery life because they're making it super thin.
But what's a major hit on battery life in this day and age?
Oh, I mean, it's more similar to what their older laptops were. I'm looking for the exact numbers here, but off the top of my head, it was something like, instead of Dell that gets the 15 hours, and the other thing you missed is on the Dell, they have a battery accessory that plugs in that gives you an additional 7 hours of battery life. And on this one, you get 7 to 8 hours. On the Lenovo, you get somewhere between 7 and 8 hours of video playback. So which is pretty good for this generation, or for the previous generation, but is going to be, I think, on the lower end of this generation.
Yeah, and I wonder how much they really gain in terms of that much lightness. Now, I am certainly device weight obsessed. I will ditch things to save modicums of weight. But in terms of the consumer market, or the business market that really cares about what these are as high-end ultrabooks, I think that battery life with still a reasonable amount of weight. We're not talking about some heavy-duty thing.
Yeah, it's 2.6 pounds. I
mean, we're talking about it.
Is that it's available. Like, you can go buy a Dell XPS 13 now. They're available.
Yeah.
Like, they announced it, and they're like, and you can buy it.
Unlike everything else at CES, available now.
Vaporware.
Right. And again, talking about the chips sounds really technical, and it is, but it is this chip that's driving these devices to be able to shed weight and and add battery life. Whereas, to steal the old Colin Chapman phrase from his Lotus F1, they're adding lightness. And that matters, because I think we're trying to get to the point where, the laptops are like a pound at that and are as thin as a USB port, tapering down to nothing. And we're getting there.
And that was the other thing that was actually shown off at CES that we're not really going to talk about in depth, but was the new USB port, the USB 3.1 port.
Yeah, USB-C.
Which is like the Apple Lightning connector, there is no wrong way to put the connector in.
Now, yes, and that is great. And the rumor is it's going to be showing up on the new. So to jump to Apple for no good reason, but we're talking about high-end ultrabooks.
Welcome to CES.
Well, no, I mean the rumor is obviously Apple's going to be exploiting this architecture in the same way that Dell and Lenovo are.
Right.
So this is somewhat relevant. With the heavily rumored 12-inch MacBook Air. So rather than having an 11 and a 13, there will just be a 12-inch MacBook Air that the only port on it is going to be a USB-C port. And that's it. Yeah. Nothing else.
Well, and a Thunderbolt port.
No, I don't even think that. I think it is, what I have heard is it is just one port. Not even like a charging port. They're going to have some sort of
wire. You can charge over USB 3.1.
Right.
The USB-C can take up to, don't quote me on this, it's something like 42 volts or whatever it is. Which is more than most of the Ultrabooks are taking these days. So you can charge most modern laptops over this port, unless you have something that's just a beast.
So, right. So you have this 12-inch MacBook Air with presumably 15 hours of battery life.
It would have two of them, one for like charging and one for other.
No, I really think it's what I have read. Literally, only one. So you have to choose.
Surely Apple,
really,
without Steve Jobs,
really
is not that ballsy.
I don't know. So they, at the height of peripherals, they released the original Mac Mini. How many USB ports do you think the original Mac Mini had?
I have no idea.
2. It only had 2 USB ports. It had no other way of hooking in a keyboard, no other way of hooking in a mouse, no other way of hooking in anything, no FireWire, no nothing, just 2 USB ports. So let's reflect on this for a moment. Let's assume for a second that you didn't buy the important Apple keyboard, which included a USB port, and an Apple mouse that hooked into that USB port. Let's assume you had just a keyboard and mouse, and then you needed to hook in your iPod, or a USB flash drive, or a dog that humps itself, powered by USB, or a USB desk fan, or whatever. You had to start choosing, making very tough choices about your USB peripherals.
USB hubs.
This device also did not come native with Wi-Fi and did not come native with Bluetooth. This was 2005, when all of these technologies were reasonably standard. Certainly Wi-Fi was. Nope. So again, I say, I think only one, and nothing else. Maybe a headphone jack. If you're lucky, there will be a headphone jack. There has to be a headphone jack.
Yeah.
I draw the line. They own a headphones company. There has to be a headphones jack. You can thank Beats for there still being a headphone jack on any Apple product for a really long time. So to switch gears.
Speaking of wearable technology.
What happened?
Besides
the fact that it was like literally every company had a wearable device. There were something like 540 different wearable devices shown at CES. We're not going to run down all of them.
So we're really going to only hit 2 of them. Lots of things were announced leading up to CES, including stuff from Fitbit, and Garmin announced some stuff before CES. But really the 2 that kind of caught our eye, and also Engadget's eye, in their rundown of the best of CES, were the Lenovo Vibe Band VB10, which, stop me if you've heard this before. It is an e-ink screen with a metal surround.
Right, but this one isn't square. It's a rectangle, and
it's a long, skinny rectangle.
It's called the Vibe Band.
It looks a lot like the Samsung Gear Fit, which is the narrow, tall one, which is actually the only Gear I've seen in the wild. And it looks just as dumb in the wild as it does in the advertisements.
Fitbit Charge, Fitbit Surge, Fitbit One, Garmin,
Fitbit One already
Misfit Shine,
existed.
Misfit Flash, Rustastic, Whittings Pulse X Ox, Whittings Active Pop, Whittings Active, Berg Watch Phone,
if I remember correctly.
Fashion.com.
So the Withings Active, if I remember correctly, is the one that's
looks like a real watch. Yep. But it doesn't have, but it's like $400 and the Pop is like $150, $200. And they look really, really nice.
They look like real watches, and they have all the sensors in them.
And we tried out Whiting stuff 2 years ago, and their apps worked really well then.
Their apps were good. Their hardware was unoriginal. It was uninspired. It was interesting. I mean, it had the heart rate stuff.
It had heart rate stuff. It had an integrated scale before Fitbit did. Anyways,
although Fitbit scale came out shortly thereafter, and I'm still intrigued by those scales.
No, you're not.
I'm intrigued. I didn't say I would actually buy one.
Really?
For $130? No.
Yeah.
And then the
Anyways,
other thing
keep
is,
talking about the interesting things.
the other thing that was announced was a Bragi Dash headphones.
Yes.
So the Bragi Dash is the dream of truly wireless earbuds. Like, and by truly wireless, I mean not the ones where you put the earbuds in and they have the little wire in the back that connects them, that has the battery in it. No. Truly wireless. And then on top of that, they also have a heart rate monitor built into them, and they come with a carrying case that you plug the thing, like you set them into, and it charges them. And
they have a heart rate monitor built in.
Yeah, they have a heart rate monitor built in.
And accelerometer. So it's an all-in-one fitness wearable and starts to look like something that makes sense for what this is going forward. Because I don't think it's always going to be band-based. Because that seems really limiting, and most of these, the Sololis Thrive, the Tony, the Cognito, so many of these things look bloody awful. So why don't we integrate these things into earbuds that people wear anyways?
Well, and I think that
especially for working out.
The two things that I'm going to draw on are, if you're looking for the device that will track your steps and not be obtrusive with it, the thing you're looking for is a Watch Plus. So, a la Fitbit, or not Fitbit, Pebble, and the new Fitbit that is basically a smartwatch. And then you look at the Withings Active and Active Pop that are watches that have the accelerometers and things in them that function like watches, and they look like watches, and they just happen to pair with your phone. So it's more moving away from this kind of, I think the Misfit Flash, and I remember texting you during Black Friday. The Misfit Flash was on sale for $25.
Yeah, $25
at Best Buy and Amazon and somewhere else. And that's when, for me, that wearable category became truly a commodity.
Right. I mean, look, I just ran down a list of 56 different wearables, most of which no one cares about.
Yeah.
And, I mean, so many of them look
cheap.
exactly the same, look like cheap BS. Many of them, most of them track your steps.
Remember Android tablets? Like,
right. I mean, it's
3
that
years
same
ago?
It's that same thing. It's the boom market. And so a lot of what CES is filtering through the DREC. It's why it's almost pointless to go, because you're surrounded by a sea of things from Shenzhen that are not worth buying, except you can buy a knockoff Apple Watch. There's someone selling a knockoff Apple Watch on the floor of CES.
Because why not?
Because why not? Because it's China, and copyright law is almost totally irrelevant. So most of these things are DREC. So you have to look at what is actually looks like meaningful innovation. And that's where I think the earbuds do it for me in a way that a lot of these devices don't. Because you realistically...
Now, the Bragi Dash was a Kickstarter last year that raised $3 million. So, like, it was very successful.
Yeah. But it gives you heart rate monitoring when you really want it, when you're kind of out and about, or when you're actually out working out. You're probably not, unless you're me, you're probably not going to walk around with these things in all day long, right? Or else you're essentially wearing earplugs all day long.
Which is why it would be, unless you're you.
Unless you're me, and because then I'm walking around specifically trying to avoid the undergraduates, and so I am wearing earbuds almost constantly.
So here's the question though. When you look at something like this, and you think about the fact that I'm looking at the article on Engadget, and they're saying that it has a 3.5 hour battery life. Now that's great for working out.
Yeah,
but if you're dealing with the undergraduates, eventually they're going to die and become just your plugs.
The undergraduates are eventually going to die. God, I hope so. I've been saying that for years.
Eventually the undergraduates will become either graduate students or go off into the real world.
No, but here's the thing about undergraduates: new ones show up every year, so they it basically never changes. Anyways,
and
this is an existential crisis.
And they're no faces. They're just, mindless drones.
It's just faceless, mindless drones.
On Yik Yak.
On Yik Yak. No, I mean, look, this isn't actually a device I want. What I want is an Apple Watch that's cheaper. Is what I actually want.
Yeah.
Is because I want notifications, so I don't want a Whitings. I think most of the fitness-focused ones look like you are trying to be cyborg NFL man, and I'm not that. So I want something with an eye towards fashion that does notifications and maybe offers more than the Pebble does. Or maybe not. Maybe I'm going to get the Apple Watch and realize all I really wanted was a Pebble Steel anyways.
What I think is really interesting is that you mentioned Pebble. Pebble was one of the big ones that made an announcement last year at CES.
The Steel?
For the Pebble Steel. And so what I've been telling people when they've been asking me about my Pebble is, yeah, I really like it, but you should probably, because people have been asking me in the last 4 to 6 weeks, I said, if you can, you should wait until after CES, because most likely Pebble will announce something new at CES. That's when they did it last year. And they didn't. And so I think I can't figure out what the reason behind that is. I have two theories on that. One is that the development cycle on their next device is taking longer than maybe they thought it would. Or two, no one is actually directly competing with them
at the moment.
Currently, Pebble
the Vibe is the Sony one that's coming. Well, the Vibe Band. Good Lord, it sounds like a sex toy. Like, it's just, can we get that out there that maybe people should stop calling things Vibe? Because I get that it's vibrant, but it's also vibrator. This is not like, very hard time as a professional talking about the Vibe Band in polite company.
Yes.
We need to, God, the tech industry just doesn't think things through.
But I think that what it might be is that Pebble is possibly trying to do something, I don't know, round. And is running into problems.
Or they're trying to take Mirasol, which is the color e-ink.
Yeah, no, that's true. They could be doing that too.
And no one, very few people release Mirasol stuff for a reason. Apparently, it must be really hard to work with, or not quite there yet, or whatever. But I wonder if that's the deal. Is if they're working on putting out a color model that's going to have some more of the vibrancy that, like you're going to get in an Apple Watch, while still having the battery life that is basically Pebble's main selling point. Because if you really want to boil it down, what makes the Pebble Steel, or any of the Pebbles, the wearable that it is because it gets 5-day, 4-day, multiple day battery life.
I mean, mine gets 5 to 7 days.
Right.
And I'm a pretty heavy user.
Right. And so the real dividing line in wearables right now for me is how often do you have to charge them versus what kind of benefits are you getting? So you get something like a Misfit Flash, you never have to charge it. Never. It just runs on a watch battery for months, and then, it dies, and you've probably given up on the idea of a fitness tracker at that point anyways, so you don't notice, or you can replace it because it's a bloody watch battery, or it's $50, and so it's almost a commodity product at that point anyways. So you have something like that. And then you have, on the other end, you have the stuff like the LGs and the Samsungs, which die with the minute you look at them. And my worry is Apple's going to be in that camp too, where it's just going to die the second you look at it. And so then there's these players in between that are doing fitness tracking and notifications, some of them with heart rate, some of them not, and all playing in this $100 to $200 price range. And that's where the kind of fat band of wearables is right now, is in that middle $100 to $200, notifications, some form of fitness tracking, toss up if you get heart rate monitoring. And it's just
right, but most of the heart rate monitoring is at it's the really cheap device at $200.
Yep.
That also has heart rate monitor. Like it's built out of plastic and it's not very high build quality. It's kind of crappy, and
I don't know, how much is the Fitbit Surge?
It's like $180.
Okay, didn't that have heart rate? Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that the point of the Surge? The Surge looks all right. It's got an e-ink display. I get down on the Surge.
Oh no, I take it back. The Fitbit Surge is $249. The Fitbit Charge HR is $150, and it is the Fitbit Charge with heart rate monitoring.
Right, but it doesn't exist yet, right? I can't go buy that today.
It says on their website, it says buy now.
Okay, never mind. So it used to be coming soon. Okay, so that's out. Great. Fantastic.
Yeah, if I click add to cart, back order ships in 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, so good for them. They've created a problem.
They always create this problem. This is not a new problem for Fitbit.
So speaking of not new problems,
the Surge is back ordered 6 to 8 weeks.
Jesus. So speaking of problems that CES often creates, everyone's favorite dish television supplier, Dish Network, has
also known as the crazy CEO.
The crazy to rival T-Mobile's CEO. They have released yet another kind of best of CES winning, since now it's not a CBSI property judging these things, best of CES winning product called Sling TV. What Sling TV is not actually related to Slingbox, which Dish owns.
Well, it is kind of related.
Kind of. So basically, it's internet television. Multiple kind of traditional television channels, HGTV, ESPN, A&E.
The Food Network.
The Food Network. Like channels people actually watch, including ESPN, which is the big deal, on any device, at any time, as a separate $20 a month subscription with no contract. Just pick it up when you want, quit it when you want.
So here's the list. You get ESPN, ESPN2, CNN, TBS, TNT, Cartoon Network, Adult Swim, the Travel Channel, Food Network, ABC Family, HGTV, Disney Channel, and Maker.
And then there are optional upgrades for additional fees where you can get more news and sports and more kids programming.
Yeah, you can add more like the Disney Channel stuff, other Disney Channel stuff. You can add DIY Cooking Channel and Bloomberg.
So yeah, you can add additional things. This doesn't have the channels that I specifically want, but let's note, it's internet television anywhere. The only contract you have to have with Dish Network is this, the $20 a month. And again, there's no commitment. You can start when you want, quit when you want, pick back up when you want with no penalties. Yeah. Here's the catch. There is no DVR function. This is specifically aimed at people being able to watch something just kind of at random. This is based around this is basically based on appointment viewing rather than being able to delay and watch it later. This is, kind of the channel surfing for the 21st century. So Jimmy, I've kind of given my thoughts. What are your thoughts on the Sling TV?
I mean, as the cord cutter of the group, I think it's really Hey Jimmy, you're a cord cutter. Yes, I am. I think that it's a great way to get the ESPN and the Food Network, and I actually have to credit Tom Merritt on this idea over at Daily Tech News Show. But he said that these shows, other than ESPN, so your HGTVs, your Food Networks, your Maker, they're really the show, like your CNN even, are really the shows that you put on in the background while you're doing other things. It's like, I don't want to be fully and completely mentally involved in this show, but I need noise. Yeah,
so I get that. But at $20 a month,
it's a little steep. So here's the other problem. I get, through my Comcast subscription for my internet, I get ESPN 360. And I think that my Comcast still includes basic cable that I don't use.
Right.
Which includes ESPN.
Which would also include more
all
networks.
Of these things, actually.
It would probably include more networks that I would be interested in, like the Discovery Channel and the History Channel and Nat
also
Geo, which are all, and BBC America, which are most of what I actually watch on my slightly overly elaborate Dish Network subscription.
Yeah, the things on this I think are the most missing are your AMC.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and the networks that taught us how to feel again for cable TV.
Mad Men
specifically.
It taught me how to feel again.
I don't think that's what you want to go with on that one, but okay.
Don Draper is my spirit animal. Specifically at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Fascinating.
Don Draper is my spirit animal.
There are definitely things missing from this, and there was some commentary about the fact that, hey, why are there no networks included in this? And
because they're not. Because anyone asking that doesn't understand how networks work.
Right, but the argument that Dish made, and that was not that in the Engadget article I just pulled up. I want to say it was in the CNET article, where basically the Dish CEO, when asked that question, said, well, if people want to watch those networks, all they need is an antenna.
Right. Also, the licensing on that would be horrendous. Because let's remember one simple fact about network television. Those networks are not all owned by ABC. They are franchises like McDonald's or Subway or Waffle House. And so they are owned by a separate company who you have to get a separate individual license from. It took years for local stations to show up on satellite at all, much less this weird IPTV thing.
Yeah.
If you really want your local channels, get an antenna.
Get a leaf antenna.
Right.
They're cheap and they're small and they work.
For most people. But again, some of what Aereo's argument was, and I think they're right, is that some places it doesn't matter how fancy your small antenna is, unless you're putting a big fat thing on your roof, you're not getting anything.
Right. No, that's true. And they're definitely right about that. Because
for years, over the air has mattered very little. And they keep losing out on spectrum, and I honestly think they aren't pushing that powerful a signal because they figure, and rightly so, that most of their viewers are accessing through cable or satellite. Because that's the reality of America pre-cord cutting. There was the cable TV revolution in the 80s and 90s where everything became cable TV, and we got hundreds of channels that we don't need, the Homeland channel and the military channel and the whatever.
Well, and you can even argue that some of the channels we've already discussed, the Food Network, HGTV, these are all things that came up in the 90s.
And came out of the cable TV revolution. And they've struggled to find a home on the internet because of how much money you can make as a cable company. So I think this starts to get there. And it shows specific companies, in this case Disney, willingness to play ball. Because Disney
has always been willing to play ball.
But that's not true. Disney does not play ball when it comes to open standards for, on-demand video. They don't play ball there.
Disney doesn't play ball except when there's money in it for them.
Right.
If they see opportunity for them to make money.
Right, but they could have gone full jobs and done this themselves. And you could have the Disney a la carte Disney Network subscription. And that would be actually incredibly viable if you think about it. ABC Family, Disney's.
That's what this basically is.
No, but it's not all of
the basic channels.
But it's not all of them. Disney could offer their own $20 a month thing that was just all of their channels. And I think it would sell a ton of them because you'd hit the sports fans with your ESPN, and you'd hit your children, and often
Don't hit your children.
in your vision of this American nuclear family, you have dad and his sports, and kids and their cartoons. And then mom apparently watches a ABC family when everyone else is at school or work. because that's how real America works right now. Yeah, that's certainly what my life looks like, except I would be the mom at home watching ABC Family all day.
And your wife would be the one watching ESPN.
And my wife would be the one watching ESPN. Because that's a much more realistic scenario, because, 4 days a week I'm the perfect Christian housewife.
No, what I would say is that I would bet that Disney has some licensing deals with their content providers.
Well, yeah.
That they will not make a separate competing service.
Sure.
So like they have like they will not directly compete with the people that they are licensing their content to.
Yes, but I just think, I think at some point those deals go south. Because at some point the cable companies as cable providers and satellite companies as satellite providers, it's just not a sustainable model, because it's based on like a fire hose of content that no one wants, competing against a medium where you can tailor everything you want with very few commercials. So I don't watch a whole lot of live TV, but I've been watching football, which weird for me. But I got kind of hooked into the national championship. By the way, spoiler alert, OSU won big.
Dang.
Yeah, OSU managed to stop Oregon's offense, which I didn't know if that was possible. Anyways, that's enough.
I didn't
football.
think that could happen.
I didn't think that could happen either. I really didn't. But I couldn't be more pleased. Anyways,
there was let's see.
So basically, in watching as much football as I've watched lately, I've been immersed in commercials and realized how terrible they are, and how I'd forgotten how much time you lose. Because most of what I'm watching is on-demand stuff, even just on my DVR. I'm not like doing a lot of appointment viewing, because I don't care what Twitter's saying about Mad Men or MythBusters, which are kind of two of my big shows. I think the days are numbered for that model.
And I am definitely not. I place almost zero value on day of. And like, for example, this weekend was the second round of the playoffs, or I guess technically the first round, because last week was. Anyways, so the second round of the playoffs,
NFL playoffs. Now that college football has the playoffs, we now need to differentiate the NFL playoffs.
It was the second round.
This was the final round of the college playoffs.
And so I was able to watch the Colts Broncos game yesterday on my antenna, because all of the main networks have all the NFL deals. And so whereas, yes, there are certain things like Monday Night Football, which is restricted to ESPN.
Interesting.
Monday Night Football is only on ESPN. So
is it on ESPN 360?
I don't actually know the answer to that, but
that would be an interesting thought experiment.
But yeah, so in general, especially for local sports, they're going to be on your network stations. So
right, and in fact, they'll be blacked out other places. If it's local sports, it's going to be blacked out anywhere but your local stations.
Right. So I think that over the air is still a viable option that a lot of people don't think of.
But again, I think it's because some of it's so
sports.
Awful. Yeah, for local sports, assuming you can get a signal, abso-friggin-lutely.
Right.
But there's a big assuming in there, and that's you can get a signal.
Right. Well, and yeah, we can. This is a whole separate conversation, really.
Yeah.
There's Sling TV for $20 and no contract. Extremely interesting. I will probably try it out.
Yeah, it's totally a viable model,
and see what we think of it.
I just kind of tacked this on because I'm interested in it. So MakerBot now has a way that you can 3D print with composite materials, so you can.
Yeah, they have PLA with like a ferrous material in it,
so you can basically print in metal.
So you can print metal Legos.
That's pretty cool.
Sorry, I'm distracted.
Yeah. So then the other kind of broader discussion topic is connected home. Internet of Things was huge at CES. There was the other kind of boom market at CES was connected home. But it's also difficult in looking at the connected home products to like pick a winner, because it's just they're not there.
There's no standard currently is the problem.
Well, There's a few. So there's Z-Wave and Zigbee that seem really popular, and the Nest one is gaining some popularity.
Well,
and a lot of the boxes talk to each other.
The advantage of Nest is that Nest uses Z-Wave.
Sure.
Z-Wave? One of those two standards.
I think it's Z-Wave. Sure.
I think it's Z-Wave. So all the stuff that works with Nest is also Z-Wave.
So, I mean, I'm not sure it's the standards. For me, honestly, I have here Misfits making light bulbs. I like Misfit because they take
hilarious.
They take the essence of what you want, sell it for the price you want, and you go, hey, I'm going to now buy this thing. That's how I feel about the Misfit Flash, and I think it's how I feel about the Misfit light bulbs, because sometimes it needs to be green. But for
$50 you can get a Philips Hue-esque Misfit light bulb.
Right. So here's my problem with the connected home stuff. Who
you only
cares?
have one?
No, I mean, what do you do with it, really? What do you do with it? And how well does it work for what it proposes to do? So if I put a connected lock on my home, which is the one that gets closest to being interested to me, locks and thermostats get kind of interesting to me. But so
I'm always interested in thermostats.
No, but I mean, in terms of them actually being something that a normal consumer, which comes to home stuff, I'm not a power user, right? I'm not like a big DIY guy. I had to do a lot of shop hours in college. I'm not totally worthless on this front, but I'm not like a big home improvement person. I spend my life in the digital world. Thank you very much. So I'm not doing a lot of meat space DIY. That's a strange statement. But locks and thermostats sound interesting to me, but here's the deal. What happens when it breaks? And this is technology. You're screwed, right? And also, how well does it actually deliver on its promises? So let's say I've got motion sensors that are tied into my light bulbs so that when I unlock my Bluetooth lock and walk in the door, I trip a sensor and the lights turn on.
No, it's more likely that when you unlock your Bluetooth door, it turns the lights on.
Turns the lights on. And if that all happens, the snap of your fingers, great. But if that is what that is actually having to do is, so the Bluetooth thing connects to the internet, tells the internet.
It goes to the hub. The hub then goes to the internet, tells the internet, hey, I unlocked. And the internet goes, okay. Oh, wait. Go do this thing.
Turn on the lights. And if all of that happens to the snap of my fingers, so as I'm opening the door, the lights are coming on, great. But what do you want to bet that's not what it looks like?
Well, and I'm tempted to try this with Wink, because Wink actually has a device that comes the closest to this. So Wink has the Trip-It sensor,
right?
Which will sense door opening. So I can put Link bulbs or Wink bulbs in these two lights behind me, and I can put a Trip-It on my front door, so that when I open my front door, it turns on those lights.
Okay, Jimmy.
Just to see what the delay is.
Here's my thing. This starts to turn into a Rube Goldberg machine for your house.
It is a Rube Goldberg machine
that you have to build.
There's no will turn into.
That you have to build yourself. You have to program these things. Now, they've made user-friendly programming tools. I'm not really arguing with that. But who is really going to do this? It's like the bloody Christmas lights people.
Well, and they've... The other thing to remember is that they've built mainly off of the If This Then That platform.
Right. Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Sure.
Because that's totally third party. That's not owned by anybody. But
you still got to write them. And I mean, again, you can go and download other ones.
They have pre-baked recipes that they'll suggest to you. So, for example, I have the Belkin one of the Belkin switches that I've had for probably a year and a half now. I've had it for a while. And it's still just kind of a gee whiz thing. But the thing that it's great for, that I really like it for, is cycling lights on and off and using it so that in the mornings, whenever my alarm goes off, my lights turn on because it makes me wake up.
Right.
There's certain things like that you can program into it, but it's still a gee whiz thing.
But here's the here's the phrase I want to pick up on it, that I have to program in, or that you have to program in. So let's picture, back from the previous discussion, our Disney-loving family. Your average American family.
Oh, dad throws the hub out the window.
Right, because
it's done.
You bought this thing, and what does it do? Oh, you can do all this, and you could do this. Yes, and I could buy a Linux box, and I could start programming Linux code in Bash, and all of these great things. And I
have a much better example than that. How many people have programmable thermostats in the United States? A load. Pardon my French. A bunch of people have programmable thermostats, myself included.
Me too.
So many people never program them.
I have no idea how to. Sydney has to do it.
I have programmed mine. I'm in the HVAC industry, mind you. I have programmed mine once. I have accepted the fact that it currently does not meet my schedule, and I do not have the energy to go back into the thing and figure out how to fix it.
Right.
Like,
when these things... So here's what... And so the end thought of this is, okay, so it starts to learn your behavior and just react automatically, which is creepy. Which is creepy if you really get down to more than really any of this. But so, like, your lights just start coming on their own without you telling them to, because your house knows, or Google knows, or whoever's crunching the big data on this knows that it's time for you to get up. Because it's talked to your iPhone and knows the alarm that you set. And
or it knows what your calendar is.
Or it knows your calendar.
So it takes you an hour to get ready, and it's going to take you 25 minutes to get to work. Oh, wait, except it's raining, so it's probably going to take you 35 minutes.
Right, and it knows that, you were up really late the night before drinking, and so it brews your coffee extra strong. And at some point, you're being controlled by your house. I mean, at some point, it becomes the game, the new Tim Schafer game, Broken Age. Where the opening scene of Broken Age is this kid on a ship that provides everything for him in an automated fashion, but offers him no freedom. At some point, the connected home is either worthless or Broken Age. And neither of those things I really want to spend my money on, unless I can program a Twitter feed that every time the Astros win, it flashes on my light screen. Why green? It's nothing to do with the Astros colors. I just like the color green. But you can do
it just has to
be green. So you can do dumb stuff like that.
No, the connected home, I think, will stay. I have a very specific application to my current apartment that I would like to apply to the connected home. I have a large temperature difference between where the thermostat is and where I spend most of my time. So I need one of those spotter things.
Sure.
And the norm, and put the norm on the wall, a Wink hub, and a spotter, and use it to average the temperature across the space.
Yeah, that's not. I mean, again, like, I don't deny
that takes real programming, but
right.
That's something that would cost like $500
right
off the shelf.
And again, real programming. I don't understand.
I tried to look up if there was something like this that's already been written, and I couldn't find anything because I have a very specific knowledge set and application.
Right, but I also think you're the perfect kind of person for the connected home. And I look at most of this and go, what besides wanting a drop cam, which I'm getting, I have a drop cam on the way, so I want a drop cam and I'm getting a drop cam, and now I've exhausted what I actually want from my connected home. And I have a very specific application for a drop cam that totally ruining my future child's life.
Well, and the other thing to remember is that the connected home macro is not something that everyone's going to get into, in the big way that you can. Like the door lock thing, until it has been tried and broken and then fixed and then broken again and then finally fixed, you're not going to see major application. Or what you're going to see is companies like Kwikset making a door lock that has a traditional key and a Bluetooth override.
Sure. Yeah.
Bluetooth will unlock it, but if the Bluetooth doesn't work, you have a key that unlocks the door.
Right, like push button starts in cars. So all those cars actually have a key.
Yeah, there's a key slot for all those push buttons,
right,
just in case.
Just in case it doesn't work. But again, this is all just a kludge, and I look at push button start and go, why? And I look at Bluetooth locks and I go, why? And the only thing with Bluetooth locks is that I can give someone else a temporary key to my house. That's pretty cool. But that's a really limited application, but a good one. The thermostat thing, I get. You can adjust it, and it can. There's some interesting things that can happen with it. But the light bulbs and all of the different sensors just to start to turn into, you can build your own weird Rube Goldberg machines, and that's not really applicable to like most of the market. So I'm not sure yet how this is really going to be the next boom sector in tech. In terms of why do I care that my washing machine is on the web? Why? I mean, you can get those now.
That stuff I'm not into.
It's just notifications. So I leave the house and it lets me know my laundry's done. This is only useful if my washing machine starts exploding.
The only other application that I've come up with for someone that doesn't use much technology and quite frankly hates technology is my girlfriend often has the problem of she doesn't know whether or not she unplugged her straightening iron. She'll just forget. She usually does.
So put that on a connected outlet, and then she can kill it from her iPhone from Timbuktu.
Yeah, $40 will solve this problem. You get one of the Belkin Insight outlets, connect it to the Wi-Fi, you're done.
Right.
Then even if it's plugged in, you just press a button, boop, and it turns it off.
The connected home thing that I actually want is I want the fridge that knows what I'm out of. That's what I want.
That's super useful.
And that is a long way off, because that's image recognition technology gone terribly awry. But that's what I want. Because I wanted to learn what's normally in the fridge. Grapes, oranges, 2% organic milk, Oscar Mayer chicken, all these things that are normally in the fridge. Learn that that's what I normally have in there. Notice when it's either expired or run out, and add that to my shopping list automatically. Or even get really smart and integrate with wearables so that my watch vibrates as I'm walking by the Oscar Mayer's chicken to remind me that I'm out of it.
Well, because it's going to integrate with the Google Maps for the grocery store.
Right. And that's where it starts to get interesting, but we're a long way off from that.
Yeah, that's at least 5 to 10 years off.
So speaking of 5 to 10 years ago, is this week's Last Call. So Microsoft DOS games. Yes.
DOS games.
DOS games. So, we had a lot of fun with this in the pre-show. But archive.org has put up like 2,300, 2,400 Microsoft DOS games. So for those of you who don't remember...
No. The important part of this is that can be played in browser.
Played in browser for free.
You can still download like Doom 2 to play off of archive.org, but you can't play it in browser. You can play all of these games in browser.
Oregon Trail, Prince of Persia, Sim City, Lemmings 2, Wolfenstein 3D, Oregon Trail Deluxe.
I'm pressing any button on Wolfenstein 3D.
Street Fighter 2, Leisure Suit Larry, Kaffel Wolfenstein, Super Street Fighter 2, Disney's Aladdin, which is actually really good, Dune 2, the original Donkey Kong.
Aladdin was pretty good.
Yeah, the Genesis version anyways.
Interesting.
I don't know which version. It's the DOS version, but I don't know which version the DOS version is based on. I get that it's the DOS version, but the Genesis of that version of that game is actually fantastic. The original Street Fighter, Jazz Jackrabbit, which I remember, Nom, 1965 to 1975. Oh, Advanced Tactical Air Combat, Batman Returns. I mean, all of these incredible games. Nearly 2,300 of them available in your browser for free from archive.org. DOS was the thing before Windows, but actually the thing that Windows was based on until Windows XP.
Yeah.
DOS.
Until they changed the NT core.
Until they changed the NT core. DOS games.
The disk operating system.
Disk operating system. It's the thing that made Microsoft a thing a long time ago. Is that fair? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the actual thing.
Yeah, DOS was the big thing that Microsoft and IBM teamed up on to make the PC go.
Right. And so on that note, we should probably get out of here. Thank you so much for joining us on our CES rundown. If you have any feedback about how you wish to live a creepy life of the connected home, please send your feedback to podcast@textlesscall.com, facebook.com/textlesscall, pinterest.com/textlesscall, or at textlesscall on the Twitters. However you find us, we'll be seeing you on the interwebs. Test Drive 3, Sim Farm,
Mario Sim Farm in there.
Mario Brothers VGA, Pole Position, Chuck Yeager's Advanced Flight Trainer,
I missed that one.
Das Boot! You can play Das Boot German U-Boot Simulator on DOS Games!
Donkey Kong.
Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?
Super
Tetris,
Street Fighter 2.
Star Wars by Atari,
Street Fighter 2.